Okay, so hey guys, welcome again to Galactic Explorers with myself, Daniella, and as always, the lovely Dallas, my co-host and fellow Galactic intuitive. And you are outside today in your beautiful garden, and I can't wait to see hopefully some birds and maybe hear some beautiful song, right? Maybe
We'll see.
right on our podcast today. Hopefully, no motorcycles or screaming dogs or babies, right?
I promise.
Gotta love life. So welcome again. Welcome to Galactic Explorers, the podcast where we take you on a joyride through the earthly, spiritual, or everyday topic explored with a galactic perspective. So Dallas, ready? Let's break out that fishbowl.
All right.
Topic we have for us today.
Make it a good one.
That's a good one.
Ooh, Akashics.
All right. That's going to be a good, interesting topic.
Yeah, I love this. I was just talking about it yesterday with somebody.
Well, there you go. So yeah, Akashics. Big topic. A lot of these are big topics, and they're hard to fully encompass in just a short amount of time. I mean, I know that you and I mean, we took months to learn fully what we know about the Akashics, and what we know isn't, of course, all there is to know or understand about how it works, how you access it, what you use it for, all of these aspects. So to try and cover it in a 40-minute thing is going to be interesting to see what kind of bullet points we can bring up and share with people about our perspective on kind of where it is, what it is, how you get access to it, who gets access to it, how you can use it, right? All of these kinds of things people would want to know from a perspective where it's like we talk to ETs. So from a perspective that's a little bit above just using, everyday things to, play with tarot and all of that stuff and just tapping in. So it's a little bit more than, I guess, your beginner level understanding of the workings of that mechanism. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what comes up today. So what are your main, I guess, experiences or thoughts on what it is for you? Because you and I have talked about this, like how it shows up for you versus how it shows up for me. The different kinds of sensory experiences that we have while we're accessing.
Yeah.
I guess just launch into that, just to give people an idea of the different types of experiences you can have and still be connected to those records. Because I think a lot of misunderstanding and confusion comes from not realizing all the different various ways that there is to be accessing it.
Right. I feel getting into your Akashics, I think it's kind of another level of yourself that you're willing to look at and see from different lifetimes. I mean, when I've gone into my Akashics, it's very, I want to say broad, of course. But it's...
You mean more that you get like the broad strokes of an idea or an experience rather than having like full sensory immersion of detail?
I think Akashic for me is, it's not like, oh, I'm going to go and see what I was in this lifetime. It's more of, okay, I'm having this emotional response at this time, and it's something that's a pattern that happens, why is it still going on when I've cleared stuff in this life? So then I'll go in and see, okay, what other lifetime did I carry that?
Yeah, where else is it anchored?
Yeah, where else
into
is it
your soul
going?
print, into your blueprint.
Yeah. And
Mm.
so going in and then pulling that up, and then you're seeing a side that's not very nice.
I know. I
And
noticed it's not super pleasant.
it's not, you know. And I was telling, like, the conversation I was having yesterday, who hasn't gone into Akashic, and I was telling her kind of a truth of it. She's like, oh, it'd be so fun and da da da. And I'm like,
It
it is
is,
cool.
but
It's
it ain't.
great. I'm like, it is cool that we can do this, and you're willing to see your shadow self, pretty much how I see it is, but it's dirty, and you have to be willing to see things that are not friendly and inviting and heartwarming, and you
Right.
know, it's not like
Things
you
you've
are
done, things been done to you.
right, and
The
then
whole
you
spectrum, yeah, of
right,
where you're carrying these emotional anchors.
or what you do to people,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know,
Yeah, what you've done, what you've had done to you. Yeah, all of that. Oh, yeah.
like that's
It's
the
not pretty,
emotion,
yeah, to come face to face with what you've done in some other lifetimes. And then interesting to have to take it to another level from that aspect is to then not focus on victimizing yourself for having done that.
right? Yeah, and then
So
carrying that
so
back
not
with you.
victimizing yourself in this lifetime, saying, "Oh my God, I'm such a terrible person,"
Yeah,
keeping yourself down and playing yourself with guilt and shame for what you've done in other lives. So it's not about that. It's
right.
definitely about keeping yourself out of that loop, because it's very easy to get into that loop, especially
Mm-hmm.
with the kind of world we live in today, where it's like everything is black and white. You either are on the team or you ain't.
Right.
So when you come face to face with some of these experiences where you've had to make a lot of interesting decisions,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it can be pretty shocking sometimes to see where it's like, oh,
Yeah. And then to see it for what it is,
mm-hmm,
get through that emotion and clear it and whatnot. But yeah, and then letting it go, you know,
yeah,
because you don't want to hold on to that thought of like, oh my God, did I really, you know, and that create the story and
right. Because
have
by
that
holding
story
on to it, then
playing.
yeah, you're just anchoring it further in. And I know that
Yeah.
that's an Achilles heel of mine sometimes. Is I get in
Mm-hmm.
there and see some of the atrocious shit that, I mean, we've all done it, so it's not like I'm
Oh yeah.
special, right?
No.
But
No.
for some reason, that ego, that protective personality of mine, really likes to latch onto those kinds of things and
Mm-hmm.
play out a storyline of, it's like, oh, well, you've got to, it's like almost like repent in this lifetime for all the bad shit you've done in another lifetime. It's like, what? Where is this coming from? So
Yeah.
it's interesting to witness it, and important to maintain awareness as you're going through and witnessing all these experiences, such that your own brain doesn't latch onto something and
Right. Yeah.
start
Because
running the real you amok, and confusing you and keeping you spiraled in a loop that you're trying to clear.
right. Because we're just the observer.
Mm,
And I think keeping yourself the observer through the whole experience has helped me of like, okay, I'm just seeing from the outside view. It is me. I'm willing to own it. I'm willing to clear it, but I'm just the observer through
mm-hmm.
that time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
I think
perspective
it's
definitely helps. Yeah,
yes.
to
Yeah.
remember that.
Right. And keeping it just light. I mean, is the best you can when you go through that experience. And
Right.
I remember the first couple times it was more like when I've gone in was like kind of just where the setting is, oh, this is what I'm doing. But then when I start doing my work of it, of clearing of that, you know, whatever I'm doing, it was heavy. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, oh shit. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
can
and then
feel it moving through you too, like a weight.
mhm. Oh yeah, big time. Oh, and that's really heavy.
Yeah.
And
It's like when people
this,
talk about things being heavy, it's like, no, literally, like people like us are feeling a weight
yeah,
pass
it's
through our
heavy.
body, like a heaviness, like there's a sandbag.
Yeah, and you've been carrying it for
Yeah.
lifetimes.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
But freeing it, right, and
Very.
having that bag go is so rewarding at the same time of
Absolutely.
like, oh, I don't have to carry that. I don't have
Nope.
to
I'm just go
be
ahead,
cycling in that
put
anymore.
that
So
down.
it's,
So you kind of have to be willing to go through that uncomfortableness.
mm-hmm. And seeing it and feeling
Yeah.
it and
So it's like the uncomfortable thoughts, the uncomfortable feelings. It's like the understanding, and then yeah, just go okay and let it
right.
instead of holding on to it. So yeah, that's an interesting way of functioning with it, because I know a lot of people, well, functioning with that mechanism, because I know it's interesting. A lot of people, like you mentioned, your friend, almost think of it like a game,
Mm-hmm.
or like a theme park novelty or some kind of thing,
A
like,
movie.
yeah, or yeah, it's like literally just some kind of game. I mean, and I guess in a sense, in the grand scheme, it all kind of is, but it is fun to be able to go up there and see it. It is cool. It's an interesting ability.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's if you're going in there earnestly to see what's causing you to have blocks in various areas, whether that be physical or emotional, financial, relationship, anything. If you're going in there earnestly to do some work, then yeah, it's not a fun experience. You cry a lot. Right? You
Oh
cry a lot.
God.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's cool to do and
Mm.
cool to experience and explore with, and start with some of the light stuff to go and play with. But yeah, if you're going to be serious about cleaning out the closet, there's skeletons in there and they weigh, they're heavy. You got to get them out of there.
Yeah. And sometimes they're not very easy to get out.
No, talk
And
about
there's
dangly.
layers of them. So
Yes.
you could go through one life and then experience, okay, I got to go through another life where, like,
Where, yeah, find out where it is somewhere else.
yeah. And it's not always at the same time either.
Mm-mm.
It takes
Like, I
time.
think everything else, it comes in waves, like the work. It's like you hit up against a new roadblock or a new emotional reaction that you don't find favorable. And then, yeah, you got to go digging again. You got to go back to your
Hmm.
archaeological dig.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
right.
Yeah, right. So, how, I guess the simplest way to ask this would be for us to describe how, just kind of in a short version, how you access the records. Like, so what is the process that you go through to do it?
I'm
In a
I do
short
like
version, the
yeah,
footnotes version.
I visualize meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a sequence that I go through getting into the records, and but I'm in my body, I'm fully aware. I kind of have an intention before going in, and as I'm in, it pops up like a movie.
Mm-hmm. I was going to
And
ask,
then
so how does it show up for you?
yeah,
Is it
so it
like a
pops up.
visualization in
Yeah.
your mind's eye, almost like watching a
Mhm.
dream while you're sleeping?
Yep,
Like
it's
that?
literally like a movie. Like I see like almost like like a screen, and here it is, and it's playing out, so I'm the observer and I see
Interesting.
myself, you know in the action and what's going on of the situation. And it's only like a brief, few minutes or
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes or so, and then okay, there, I see it, and then I'll just start writing and having it. I write everything that I see, I feel, I smell, all the senses come, how, and then the emotions that come, and the turnout, and then I kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a movie
Nice.
for me. And
Yeah.
then if I'm back in my library and
Yeah. So when you first access the records, what shows up for you? What do you see? Because this is a big question for a lot of people. Because we've talked about this, is that you see the traditional library,
I have a library.
whereas I don't.
And, right. I have a library, and it's set in a certain way. And there's some things that I can see that are clearly visible, and there's some things that are kind of, I can see like a peripheral vision of it, but I can't clearly see it yet. So I think those are things I'm just not seeing yet. That makes sense? So mine's just the library, and a book comes and it opens and then I'm in.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I know, yeah, yours is different as well.
Yeah, mine's totally different. The first time I ever did it, I have a similar practice to yours in the sense that it's a visualization meditative sequence. Yeah, where you're not trying to astral project or anything, but you are the closest explanation that I've come to that kind of gives you an idea is it's again back to the metaphor of you're tuning your personal radio to a specific frequency. So you're meditating and visualizing certain things to bring your conscious awareness to vibrate and resonate at a certain frequency, which that frequency is where the information of the Akashics are held. Ding. Message. So the first time I did it, the lady had us go up and visualize the door. It could be any kind of door or doorway. And then there was like a whole bubble procedure, which I don't do the bubble anymore. And then you pop yourself through the doorway, and then you're going to be wherever you're going to be, however it represents for you. So like for yours, it's a library. Mine is like a Japanese garden. It's a little thing. There's like white all around it. It's almost like the white space in the Matrix where the construct where they just like start putting stuff in there, but it's all white, except this little grotto. It's almost like an oasis in the middle of nothing.
That's cool.
And there's a big like pond in the center of it, huge pond with all these big fucking fuck off huge rocks. And yeah, the guide pops up out of the center of the like well pond, pops up out of there, lots of heads. It's a hydra, which is cool. It's like I asked for a guide that's like, and this guy pops up out of the center of the pond. I'm like, hi. I was expecting something a little different.
Right?
Expecting somebody to walk out from behind one of the trees or something, but no. But no, interesting fellow that. We've had a few conversations, but the idea is that I have to jump into the pond, and then it's like Ariel's grotto down there, where there's like shelves made of the stone that the pond is made out of, and on all the shelves is all of this stuff, all of these mementos, pictures, statues, things. Every single one of those would be the equivalent of a book for you. So every single one of those is tied to a different memory, lifetime, data set. So I ask the guide what I'm looking for, and he points it out to me, and I touch it or pick it up. And then that's when it's like, then I'm dropped in and actually dropped into the scene. So it's almost like if you were then dropped into a video game and you were watching NPCs or non-playable characters play it out in front of you, but you're in the scene.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they can't hear you, you can't interact with them. Right. But you can watch it. And then whenever it's over, it like pulls back out, and I usually pull back out into the garden. And if I'm, looking for something else, then I'll ask him, for something else, and then like we go on from there, or I just go out of the door. Right. So it's a very different, highly creative, imaginative version of what the Akashic records look like for most people. So the point is if you're getting any of these variances, that doesn't mean that you're not seeing it, or that you're not in it, or that you're somewhere else.
Right. And I think really too is that, of course, everybody's different in how you access it and how you see it. and how you feel it. And
Oh yeah, because it's certainly a
everybody
feeling.
everybody can access it. And I
Hmm.
think we do at times have like thoughts or ideas or something, like especially if you see somebody,
Hmm.
right? And you like, and you have this like vivid, like almost daydream,
Hmm.
see this scene or something, or this, and you're just like, well, where did that come from, right? But that person, it like kind of wakens you up to that. I think that's the same thing as kind of you. For me, it's easy, and I'm like, oh, that's a past life, like I just saw
Right.
a past life. Your
Right.
Akashic comes drops in, so I
Right.
feel like you don't always have to have it through a meditation. It's just like it can drop in
Sometimes you
something.
align. Yeah, because I've had that happen
Mhm.
before. Absolutely.
Yeah, where a person or a place or something,
Just
or you're
something kind of triggers
watching.
a memory or something, or you feel like super deja vu-y and you hadn't been there yet. Um, so it's, yeah, interesting interplay with
Or
time and
you're
lifetimes.
watching like a movie or something like that, and something comes up and you're like, wait, like you almost get like a fear or an excitement, like, especially like war movies or anything. Like for me, like I've had some experiences of like, especially like a Braveheart or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's so weird. You're like, oh, this is interesting. And so when I started going to my Akashics, I'm like, oh my God, this is just like,
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
I've been there. I've done
Yeah,
it.
there you
Okay,
were. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was interesting really
Mm.
truly to find out. This is like one of the first things that kind of led me to it and allowed me to connect to the idea of being able to access my Akashics. Um, is that I've always had an affinity, like a really deep, intense passion or liking for various eras in history.
Mhm.
Certain ones I am so ridiculously passionate about. Want to be surrounded by the iconography of, want to dress in the clothes of, makeup, like, and there's lots of different ones.
Yeah.
Egypt, India, like 1800s, like late 1800s Europe. Like there's, Victorian era, like there's very certain ones. But if you get out of a certain era, like even just 10 years out, couldn't care less. Not connected to
Right.
it whatsoever.
Right.
So then I had always had the question, it's like, so why am I so drawn to these specific eras in history and not others? Because for some people there was crossover, but then they'd have other interests that I didn't have,
Mhm.
and so
Right.
it always had made me wonder. It's like, so I wonder what the driving force behind this is, these specific eras and not others. Well, like you said, when you finally tap into the Akashics and you go, all right, show me something, they're like, okay, roll out the Rolodex, right?
Right.
I was like, dealer's choice, show me something. Boom, Egypt. Boom, like all of these things. And again, it's not always the prettiest. You're not
Right.
always like a princess and a king and a queen and like doing awesome stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like that doesn't mean you weren't there.
Right.
So I guess the moral of that story is, to anybody who's got those leanings to where there's these specific eras in history that they are absolutely drawn to, you might want to check into an Akashic record reading and see if there's a reason for that. Because you might have had a, very impactful lifetime or sets of lifetimes during that period.
Mhm.
Because some of those periods are, hundreds of thousands of years long. And yeah, see what comes up for you. See why it keeps resonating with you. Because there could be some keys to unlock what's going on for you in the current lifetime
Yep.
by understanding what came before. Not reliving it, not replaying it, I should say, but
Right.
understanding it.
Right.
So that's an interesting aspect of it too.
Mhm. Never.
Just for like the everyday person that hasn't really dived into this kind of thing, it's like there's ways to tell that your Akashics are pulling at you. Like you
Yes.
said, with the memory of somebody passing you, like, or meeting a new friend, and you're like, oh, this is how it was with us. Where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
Hi. Good to
And
see
just
you
like that.
again. Should pick up where we left off, shall we?
Right?
What?
Let's go.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But there's people that I meet where I'm just like, nice to meet you, but I mean, again, couldn't care less. Have
Right.
no immediate, energetic, emotional, metaphysic attachment, magnetic attachment to.
Right.
So,
So interesting. I think now what about I'm going to go a little further here. And of course, Akashics are past records. I'm trying to think how to put this. Maybe I don't know if I want to get into that. Maybe not.
well, shoot it out there, and then we'll see if we need to add it to a separate one.
Yeah. Of even, I'm just going to say future self.
Mm-hmm.
Of,
Yeah, the records are there.
I'm trying to how to word it, of we can go back, right? We can always go back in time, but then there's also this part where we can go forward a bit,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah,
it's
there's actually
aspects
lots
of
of
ourselves.
people that their whole entire practice of what they teach people is to go and talk to their future self.
Yeah.
Is to meditate and connect with their future self, to have their future self help give them and guide them to the information that leads them to being that person.
Yes.
That is a whole thing.
Yeah. It's all timelines, right? Isn't it
Yeah.
just all timelines? So
Yeah. Interesting fun fact though is and I'm kind of inclined to believe this, especially when it's something that like Frank mentions out of the blue, where he's all of a sudden got this theory potentially about how timelines work or something. And then you hear a channeled work that of course he's never heard of or never heard the idea from, and they basically say the exact same thing.
mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, now. Wait, hold on. You might be on something. But the idea is that our consciousness is, so let me back up. Everything is infinite, right? I know, right? We got to back way up. If everything is infinite, then there's an infinite amount of Earths. Like if there's an infinite amount of these dimensions, there's an infinite amount of Earths, and they're all going consecutively overlapped across the timeline. So if there's all these infinite amount of Earths, your consciousness is literally hopping from one dimension to the other, one timeline, if you will, back and forth as you go along, according to the channel to work, about 1 billion times per second.
Yeah.
According to that channeled work, it was about 1 billion times per second. And I was like, well, if every moment is a moment,
Right.
a moment, you could potentially have the possibility or potential. Oh my God, there goes my ear ringing. That's fun. You could have the potentiality to be moving across timelines that fast if you were making new decisions all the time.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Right? But Frank's idea is interesting, is that his was based off of the how many times we should have died in our lifetimes, and we got out of situations by the skin of our teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Should have died. He's like, how many times have you should have died? And I'm like, right? All the back alley parties you go to, all the stupid shit you did when you were a kid. You're supposed to break your neck, but you're fine. Just all of these things, right? How many times were you supposed to die? could you have supposedly died? Well, what if it's just your consciousness jumping to a different timeline where you didn't die and you just continue? So there is that version that did die, but you just hopped consciousness in the moment, and you're now on a different timeline where you didn't die.
Interesting.
So he had come up with that before I had even heard that channel work, and I was like, okay, now.
Interesting.
Interesting, right? And
Yeah.
Frank is not a huge metaphysical person.
Right.
He's very grounded, very earth-based, we'll say. He's older. Well, no, he's a lot older than he thinks he is. There are some serious nuggets of universal galactic wisdom that pops out of his mouth that I'm like, okay, now. You have a level of understanding and patience and compassion that I can't aspire to yet. Okay? Mother Teresa and Gandhi had a love child, and it was you.
Oh my God.
Okay? Like, I'm so grateful for him in so many ways. So he pops out with these one-liners, though, sometimes, and I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Interesting. That's a
Interesting.
great.
But then he's also, like fully into Cowboys football and drinking scotch, and like he's a human.
He's the most interesting man in the world.
He is the most interesting man in the world. I knew it. Yes. Only the best. I couldn't have any less, right?
No.
With my crazy ass.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I don't want
so he pops out with those one-liners. Speaking of popping timelines and futures, like talking to your future self and things like that, is like, that's an idea to be able to explore also. Because you could potentially look into potential futures in your Akashic records to see how you got somewhere. And that's a skill people teach people.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting aspect I'm glad you brought up, because otherwise, we may not have covered it or touched on it at all.
Yeah, I don't know why. It kept coming up. I was like, okay, I'll say it. And I was like, how do I say it? How do you say something? You're going to talk to your future self, or there's a future aspect of yourself you can get in contact with, it's very interesting. And once you start playing with all of that, it's almost a mind fuck in a way, where you have to like make sure that you're really grounded and you're stable, because you can really you can get out there a little too much.
Yeah.
Like
well, especially when you go, like when you not only do past and future human timelines,
oh yeah,
but non-human timelines too.
yeah.
And that's an aspect that's, generally, as most people, well, some people probably know that listen to us, called the halls of Amente or something similar to that. And you start getting into that kind of stuff, and then it's very important to stay grounded. Like in your, in your body and in your awareness, and because it can be very easy to lose yourself in those timelines and storylines and what you did and what you did had to you and who you've been and all kinds of like your roles and all kinds of things. And
well, I think too, from accessing that, I feel you have to be really in your body, because I feel like I almost want to drift away.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You have to be, okay, I'm still grounded in my body. I'm staying here. I'm just looking.
Right. I'm window shopping. Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
Not buying anything. I'm not even going into the store. Yeah.
It's a weird feeling. And I haven't accessed that very much because of that feeling. For me.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, but for me, I feel like
different.
it's like, ooh, I don't know about this yet. Like it's.
But what's interesting is like those were some of the first memories that started coming through for me. When I was much younger, like when I was in high school.
Yes.
Those, like the more galactic memories were the ones that were coming through, and I was like, or the galactic interacting with humanoid. So it's like we're talking that whole Babylonian, Assyrian, Syrian, Anunnaki age. So like stuff like that started to come through when I was in high school, and I didn't understand what it was at all until a decade later, when I ran into some information that was talking about Anunnaki and Draco and that whole shebang that partially started this whole thing.
Right.
So it's interesting to see what will start to come through and what people assume are just really weird fucking daydreams.
That
As you're
that
sitting
are,
there doing nothing, zoned out, aka meditating, what comes through. Because as I sat there zoned out in class, right? Sorry, boring as hell. I would just, all of this stuff would just be playing out in my head, in my mind's eye, and just seeing, visions of it, storylines of it, hearing dialogue, and I'm like, what the fuck?
yeah. For me, it was writing, because I used to write a lot, and I'd start
Yeah,
I'd have these stories and they'd keep
yeah,
playing. So
and
I
it would just
started
come out.
writing them
Yeah,
out. And the more I thought about it, and now like years later, I go, holy shit, like that was another life. Like that
yeah,
was
yeah,
in another realm or whatever. Like
right,
it was
yeah.
so much more clear. So it's funny of how it pops in naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, you're not even trying. You're not even trying to do it. But
no.
some aspect of you is trying to get the information to you so you can
Hmm.
begin a certain level of understanding.
Yeah. And it's definitely understanding yourself on so many levels,
Yeah.
right? Of where we've been, what we've done, what we have accomplished, what we've,
Right.
how far we've come. I mean, look where we are right now, and that we can go back and clear and just see it for what it is.
Right. And not have to constantly play victim to the repeat of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, even back then, it's like we were even, if we were super powerful, it's like we were still a victim to the pattern.
Yep.
We're
Of course.
still
Yeah.
trapped in the pattern. So now to be able to like pull ourselves out and almost become like a third person observer as a human, and
Mm-hmm.
go, what was all this shenanigans about? So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's if anything, getting into the Galactic and ET and even the, like crossover between the Halls of Amente and the Akashic Records. Because for me, there's some crossover where it's like part, part human, part ET, or like during a certain period of time, I played both roles. There was like
Yep.
crossover there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
had that a lot too.
but even with all of that, and it's like seeing all these, miraculous things or places or interactions that you've had or whatever, it's like now the fact that you can come back to it and witness it and process through it and be conscious about it, like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, gives me a whole new appreciation for being human.
Yeah. And our experiences that we've had.
Right. Because
Mm-hmm.
even though it may not seem as glamorous or glorious or whatever for living an everyday life, like most of us are doing, the kinds of things that we're doing energetically that we're able to do now, consciously, energetically, that we weren't able to do before
Mm-hmm.
in the same way. Because even if we were able to access a lot of these abilities, many of us, including myself, had abused them in the past, didn't know how to use them, didn't know how to
Right.
use them for healing,
Right.
just used them for ego. Right.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and coming to terms with that, and then being able, and so go, okay, so I can use these abilities for something else.
Yes.
So to come to that understanding and that consciousness and awareness level, even as just like your everyday human, has given me so much more like respect for living these kinds of lifetimes
Mm-hmm.
than I think a lot of people give themselves credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't said it perfect myself. That's awesome. Yep. It's a tool.
Yeah. We're playing The Sims, you guys.
Yeah.
Understand this. If you are familiar at all with video games, the Sims video game with the little green crystal, we are Sims. Understand this. We are Sims.
And we can control what we do.
Our higher selves is that person that's playing the computer or the PlayStation or whatever. Our higher selves is the one, and like our consciousness, that's the one that's deciding what we do. So if you can get in contact with that shit, if you can tap in and see what mistakes you've had when you burnt down the stove before, the last time you played Sims, like, why do I have these fears of drowning? I've never drowned in a lifetime. Well, maybe a couple of Sims games ago, you drowned yourself in a pool inadvertently. Right?
Yeah.
So if you can start to look at it like that and kind of almost put the spin on it, it helps, at least for my consciousness, to wrap basically my head around the concept and then utilize that as a tool and go, oh, okay, so I can learn from these past, basically video screenshots of games that I've played.
Yeah.
And go, okay, so how am I going to play this game that I'm currently actively playing different, knowing the knowledge of what I've done before in previous games?
There you go. Yep.
That's the game. That is the Akashic Records, I guess, and its use essentially in a nutshell, at least for us. At least for me. I don't want to speak for you, but
yeah, pretty much.
I didn't mean to speak for you.
It's fine. It's fine. We're on the same page usually, so.
It's true. But yeah, so dang. Oh, look at that. And that's us right on time.
Awesome.
Us right on time. So the Akashic Records has now been more or less explored, or at least begun to be explored. If there's any topic about anything that we brought up or touched on that you're curious about and want to know more about, throw it in the comments below. We can do special podcasts, special request podcasts, or we can throw it in the bowl and see when it comes up and answer it as it comes. But if you have any questions, topics for conversation, anything you want us to talk about, comments, love, anything we could be doing better to bring information and perspectives to you guys, drop it in the comments below. We always love hearing from you. So from Dallas and I here at Galactic Explorers, thank you for joining us again as we explored the Akashic Records. I keep wanting to say sucked. Now, this is going to be a little addendum on the end. Now, hear me out. And this is not a paid plug, but Frank and I listened to Dan Cummins' podcast, Time Suck.
Okay.
Which you need to listen to because it's hysterical.
Yeah.
Shameless promotion of something I listen to. Hey, Dan Cummins, you can pay me now. So I don't know if you want my listeners to be his listeners. But anyway, so we listen to Time Suck, and every time he finishes and we've been listening to it a lot because we've just been on the plane back and forth, right? So every time he finishes the topic, he goes, all right, so officially, this subject, like, say we were doing Ivan the Terrible or something. It's like, all right, so Ivan Terrible has officially been sucked. And that's, thank you for listening to the podcast, blah, 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 blah. It's like, or Grimm's Fairy Tales has officially been sucked. All right, da-da-da-da, thanks for listening, da-da-da-da-da, and like, so that's why I keep wanting to say, it's like, all right, the Akashic Records have been sucked.
Oh, we gotta come up with a theme.
Right, we gotta come up with a thing. So yeah.
That's awesome.
So there you go, you guys. There's a little bit of our craziness there at the end. Enjoy that little blooper reel from my brain.
Daniella, you've been sucked.
I have been sucked. That kind of makes it personal, Dallas. Yeah, just so you know, these videos are not rated for children.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, thank you guys for watching. Comments, questions, topics in the comments below. Like, subscribe, follow, share, all that wonderful shit. We love you guys. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.
Bye.